Good evening. Have you ever looked at the Steam charts for most played games and saw Dota 2 constantly within the top 25 over the last several years and thought to yourself, maybe I should download that video game? Well, my friend, let me tell you why you should and why you shouldn't. I have almost 6,000 hours in Dota, and well, that's not exactly the biggest flex that one can do, but it sure is the truth. Anyways, this video is intended to act as both a warning and a recommendation for new Dota 2 players. Imagine this video as a rickety wooden sign just outside of an unfathomably deep pit that you fear will swallow you whole if you enter into its darkness. I may be being a little bit melodramatic with that analogy, but only a little bit. This video is not going to be a recommendation of Dota 2. Honestly, nor will it be a proper review of Dota. This will likely come across more like a grizzled war veteran recounting his time in the trenches to his therapist. More realistically, it's just going to be a kind of poorly constructed, ranty guide on what Dota 2 is and how a new player should get into it if they want to. So sit back and let me rant at the metaphorical wall that is YouTube for several minutes about this game that has made such an incorrigible mark on me. But before we begin, it's time for one of the classic Das Zombies segments. Hey you, listener, have you ever had issues with your internet service provider? The answer is, well, undoubtedly yes, but, monopolies are kind of hard to get around, so how about a VPN? Like, for example, the sponsor of this video, Surfshark VPN. VPNs give you a safe option to browse in places your regular internet won't let you. Like, for example, Iceland, where I am, right now. It also gives you a hefty degree of security. If some rough-and-tumble internet hacker man wants at your data, he'll have a significantly harder time finding it with the soft blanket that Surfshark VPN puts over your connection. Major things like IP addresses and search history can all be hidden by browsing with Surfshark. Additionally, there's another benefit to technically being in Iceland according to your computer, and that is avoiding censorship. Surfshark lets you avoid all the nasty region locks put on content that you would absolutely love to be able to watch, which is a very nice bonus for more everyday needs, even if you don't feel like you're under risk of malfactors. So, head on down to the description and check out my code for an extra 3 months free. It even has a 30-day money-back guarantee if you find yourself really not liking what they're offering. But anyways, let's get back to what you clicked on. Starting off, what is Dota 2? Well, Dota is a MOBA, or Multiplayer Online Battle Arena, but hey, you know what else is technically a Multiplayer Online Battle Arena? Literally every other PvP game ever made. That definition is so unspecific. If you want a better definition, it's more of an ARTS, or Action Real-Time Strategy, as my friend who has 200 hours in Supreme Commander insists on calling it. Basically, it's a top-down, micromanagement-intensive, team-based strategy game where you control one guy, or sometimes multiple guys, depending on the hero you picked, and attempt to use your spells and attack damage to kill the other guys, or help your team kill those other guys, so you can get to their big glowing rock, which you then have to use your attack damage, and sometimes your spells too, to destroy, and then you win the game. The game is complicated, and most of the gameplay isn't actually in the fighting, but rather in the in-betweens where you focus on positioning and gold/experience acquisition to make sure you're higher level than the other guys and with better items than the other guys when the time comes to fight those aforementioned other guys. Actually, if you've never played Dota 2 before, that might sound a little bit intimidating, so let me dumb it down to the approximate level of understanding required to become a sniper mid-spammer, just for you guys. Dota 2 is a game where you right-click on small enemy units until they die to get money. You then use that money to build items, and then use those items to right-click on the bigger enemy units until they die, so you are able to hit the biggest enemy unit, the enemy ancient, until it dies. Okay? Got it? Neither do I. Let's move on. The first decision you are given in a Dota game is what hero to pick. Well, actually, it's what hero to ban, but just ignore that. It doesn't matter. Just click on Lone Druid. I promise it'll make you a happier person. Anyways, Dota 2, at the time of writing, has 124 heroes in it, each one playing differently from each other with their own unique skill sets, stat gains, base attributes, talents, optimal item and skill builds, viability rankings in the current meta. It makes it a pretty tough choice to choose the one to play, right? Well, see, the thing about Dota 2 is that it's a game where realism is important. For example, if this 10-ton dinosaur that has canonically gone insane were to charge at the small anthropomorphic squirrel woman and then slam her face first into the floor 3 times, she would probably die. That is, unless she was holding the still-beating heart of one of the other members of his species, in which case she would be able to survive the encounter. Makes sense, right? So, clearly, it makes sense that if some sort of powerful actual deity like Zeus, god of thunder, Satan himself, or the actual elemental forces of light and gravity were to be put in front of a regular non-magic bear, they'd clearly get torn to shreds easily with little resistance. Of course. Now you're getting it. Okay. So with all that out of the way, let me tell you the real way to pick a hero in Dota 2. Okay? You listening? It's aesthetics. That's right, my actual second favorite thing about Dota 2 is the variety in hero designs that they go with. Whereas League of Legends would rather feed you the same milled, attractive anime character slop over and over again, Dota 2 is the type of game to introduce a new hero called Glubbo Pisskicker, who looks like this, and only speaks in uncanny metal creaking noises, and he'll be the most fun son of a bitch you've ever played in your life. You want to play as a giant spider? We got one of those. How about Medusa, the character Medusa? Yep, she's here. How about 5 rats? MILF dragon? Yup. Gay dragon? Yup. Genetic defect dragon? Yup. God, there's a lot of dragons in this game. You've definitely got a few guys with guns. Yup. Alright, there they are. How about just a sphere of light? Okay, we got that. It's actually my most played hero. Okay, shit. Ugly fish. Yup. Hot fish? Yup. Beefy fish. Yep, okay. So you've got lots of fish. How about just water? The water fish live in... Oh my god, they've got water too. Okay, you're clearly just mentioning the interesting heroes. I bet that Dota has some bog standard anime characters too. Well, actually, yeah, we do have a good few of them, but only one of them actually looks like an anime character. The others have such old models that Mirana probably has less polygons than Huerta's gun. We've got tons of basic high fantasy things like hot elf archer, big bulky knight, uptight paladin, and berserker orc, except all of them are full of big twists that make them interesting. That knight? Yeah, he's actually a dragon too. How about that berserker orc? Well, his name is Axe. He talks in the third person, always. He's basically heavy weapons guy, but instead of a minigun, it's an axe. Also, you can get a skin for him that takes away the axe, and also his pants. Top quality shit here. Yeah, Dota has a lot of really cool hero designs. I could go on for ages, but I'll cut this section short here. Let's move on. So how does a Dota hero function? Well, the first 4 things you need to know about a hero are their abilities, their stats, their attack type, and their item build. Their abilities are pretty self-explanatory. Look, here are the 4 abilities of Jakiro. They all go together to make the hero into a solid AoE damage dealer and disabler, with lingering stuns, slows, and damage over time. How do his stats apply to this? Well, every Dota hero has 3 attributes, and 1 primary attribute. The 3 attributes are Strength, Agility, and Intelligence. Strength is tankiness, it gives you health. Agility is attack speed and physical resistance. Intelligence is mana, which you use to cast your abilities. Each hero has a primary attribute that tells them which of these stats they should focus on. More often than not, they have the highest stat gain in their primary attribute, and every point in that primary attribute gives 1 attack damage. Unless you're universal, then you just get attack damage for all your stats, and you end up doing 300 base damage by level 15. Your attack type is simple. Are you melee or are you ranged? Jakiro is a ranged intelligence hero, perfect for a hero who wants to stay away from the fight and dump big, dumb, high-cost AoE buttons off cooldown without worrying about his mana pool. Item build is easily the most complicated. It's basically the items that you want to buy once you have the money to buy them, and these items allow the hero to do what they want to do once they have the strength to do it. I'll not explain it too much in this video because items are very hard to explain to new players and don't need to be explained to veteran players. Anyways, how does a game of Dota actually go once you've picked your hero? Well, it generally depends on what position you're playing. Nerds will call it position 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but we'll just call them what Dota calls them: safe laner, mid laner, off laner, soft support, and hard support. In the interest of brevity, I'll be talking about the mid lane in this video, or the position 2 experience. But here, let me give you the shortened version of the game plans of the other 4. Safe laner's goal is to gain as much mass as humanly possible and then roll towards the enemy and hopefully win with the money that you've been farming for the entire game. Offlaner's goal is to be as big as possible and occupy as much time and resources as possible while the safe laner gets his money. Soft support's job is to do what the offlane does, but with less items. And hard support's job is to make sure the safe laner is satisfied, well-fed, and growing up healthy. If you need more context, I don't know, just ask a Dota player. You should be able to find them out in alleyways, shuddering and repeating some random shit about Spectre's base armor on repeat, only interrupting their muttering with a maddened laugh or two. Anyways, the mid lane is the easiest to explain because it's actually quite simple on premise. It's a solo lane from both ends, just you versus the guy on the other side of the river from you. Get more money, and kill him or his tower as soon as possible, and hope you have the power to turn that one lane into a one game. I realize I'm probably speaking complete gibberish to the intended audience of this video. Well, the intended audience of this video is actually people like me who have played insane amounts of Dota and understand all the niche references I'm making in every other line, but let's keep up the facade of a guide. So let me break things down from the start. The Dota map has two sides to it, the Dire and the Radiant. You play as one of these two teams. The layout of the map starts from the Ancient and extends out into 3 lanes, each with 3 towers in them. The Radiant and Dire lanes converge at the center of the map, which has a river in it. Every 30 seconds, the creeps will walk down these lanes before meeting with another and attempting to kill each other. Getting the killing blow on an enemy creep gives you a bit of money, and being vaguely close to an enemy creep when it dies grants you some experience, which will help you level up, and okay, that's all the actual learning we'll do today. Back to the mid lane. So it's minute 0, and you just walked into lane after having a slight skirmish for the rune. Don't worry about that, it's not important enough to talk about in this video. Let's say you're playing the easiest mid laner in the game, Meepo Dragon Knight. Dragon Knight is a melee strength hero with a kit that revolves primarily around surviving the enemy mid laner's damage and getting your farm despite it, then turning that farm, or gold, into a strong mid-game presence to take space for your team. Now let's see who you're going up against. Oh, would you look at that? A Legion commander. We're in luck today. Legion's main method of damage is right-clicking us, which our passive grants us resistance to. So, of course, in this game, we should be able to get a bunch of last hits, right? Right? Okay, in this scenario, we should be able to, but I am in fact bad at Dota and proceed to get absolutely fucking styled on for several minutes straight by this Legion, but eventually managed to pull out a lane win out of my ass by hitting her with enough magical damage from my first ability to make it to level 6 before her, where I get my ultimate, which turns Dragon Knight into Night Dragon and gives him some powerful buffs like becoming ranged and getting some debuffs on his right clicks. I use this to bully the Legion out of lane, but not before they literally teleport 3 people into the lane and attempt to kill me. What the fuck? Anyways, they fail miserably and take good chunks of damage for it. They even rotate in their Drow Ranger, their safe lane position 1 carry, who by all means should be farming, and they leave her alone in the lane while I have Dragon Form up. So I kind of just fucking kill her for free, and then also the Legion, and then their middle tower. One might say that we are gaming. I then proceed to just kind of bully the map every time my ultimate comes off cooldown for a few minutes, buying items that prioritize mobility and strength in my ultimate, before they eventually finally win an engagement. The Drow Ranger, who has been, as mentioned, feeding instead of farming, proceeds to pause on us, presumably to show that she is just very good at the game for doing a single positive thing for her team. In Dota terms, we call this maneuver the worst mistake that one could make in a losing game. Every time we win an engagement for the rest of the game, we pause on them. Now, to be entirely transparent, we only had beef with the Drow Ranger. Her team was not on her side. They were not at all partial to the BM, to the extent that they actually publicly called her the R-slur in all chat. Cool. The game at this point is what we like to call a stomp, or a free win, or the easiest money of my life. There's a bunch of ways to call it. Our entire team is essentially completely devoted to shitting on this Drow Ranger as much as humanly possible. At this point, the laning phase is long since over, and the heroes are taking on their main roles. The offlaner is starting fights and tanking damage, the safe laner is farming, the mid laner is killing people as much as humanly possible, the soft support is also doing that, and the hard support is putting down wards and getting solo dueled by the Legion commander every time he shows his face on the map. Eventually, the game reaches terminal velocity as the safe laner gets enough farm to come online and starts to shit stomp the entire map. We push their buildings, and there you go, the game is over. There's a lot of intricacies in the game, but the main way to keep momentum is going to be fighting constantly, at least in the current meta, battling over and over and over again to kill the enemy and get as much money as possible. This brings us to the topic of fights. Fights in this game, from an outside perspective, can kind of look like a complete visual spaghetti. The game has so many particle effects and abilities being cast all the time, and they're all like instant and being dumped, and it can get very confusing. So allow me to tell you how fights usually go. First off, the offlaner, or soft support, will initiate with a spell to disable a stray hero. That stray hero will usually die or get saved, and the fight will break out. More often than not, the winner will be the team with the most money, XP, and good heroes. What is a good hero? Well, it's a hero whose win rate number looks like this, and not like this. Either way, when that team wins the fight, they will usually get more money and levels and can push their advantage into destroying buildings and making their way towards winning the game. But not every fight is dictated purely off of hero picks and gold leads. There are also other things that can turn fights. Obviously, the individual choices matter. Target priority, if your safe laner is busy hitting the big tank instead of picking off the low health, high impact support heroes, you're probably going to lose that fight. But there are also other things that matter. For example, positioning and vision. Take a look at this fight location. It's good, right? Yeah, that's because it's on high ground with vision all over the map. So your team can see the other team from the start and have positional advantage. The opposite is true as well. If you're going up high ground into enemy territory where you don't have much vision, you're probably going to get your shit rocked unless you have a lead strong enough you could feed down mid for 2 minutes straight and still win. So, you know the basics of how to play Dota now, right? What do you mean you still have no idea what to do or how to do it? Just try, you'll be fine. I'm a great teacher, no refunds. Either way, what else can I talk about? Right, why do I personally enjoy Dota 2? I need to conscript more people into liking this game. So what got me to dump nearly 6,000 hours of my life into this video game and not another game like Minecraft or Counter-Strike or something? That would be the variety in gameplay styles. In most MOBAs, characters will be relatively simple, with a medium cast of varied characters that usually all fit a very niche mold. Not Dota. Dota has 120 characters, and almost every single one introduces a brand new gimmick that is rarely seen elsewhere. Every character has seemingly an entirely new mechanic alongside them. Even a simple character like Dragon Knight is still the only character that has splash damage on their ranged attacks. This makes every character feel unique and interesting compared to their contemporaries. But even among those incredibly unique characters, there's even more customization options available. I still haven't actually gone in depth about item or skill builds. Let's start with skill builds. Each character has 4 levelable skills. A few weirdos have more or less, but they're not too important. Each time you level up, you gain a point. You can put that point into the spells to level them up. Basic abilities have 4 upgrades that can be put into them, and ultimates have 3. These upgrades make the abilities do more good stuff. Cool. So how is there a variance in playstyle if you end up getting all of them? Well, the laning of a character can be entirely different depending on what you level. Let's return to Dragon Knight, for example. He has 2 main playstyles, damage and utility. If you level up your first ability, Breathe Fire, in lane to max, you have a meaty damage spell that lowers people's damage on hit, allowing you to easily bully them away from the creeps. But if you're getting your ass kicked in lane, you might choose to level Dragon Blood, your passive, that gives you more armor and health regen, allowing you to take a lot more physical damage and outlast the enemies. Or optionally, if your team really desperately needs a disable, you can level your second ability to max first, Dragon Tail, which is a short-range stun that lasts for 8 fucking years. Now, ability builds aren't the only thing you can do in Dota 2 to vary things up. There are item builds too. Items are the arguable main form of progression in Dota, arguably beating out levels in what they give you. Items cost gold, which you gain passively and from murdering things or picking up bounty runes. Some items are cheap and don't give very much. Some items are expensive and give a lot. I'll not cover every item because we would be here all week and also it would be instantly outdated. Just know that what items you end up building will be essentially your main form of personality expression in your builds. Of course, there are meta choices, but that's lame. Build to the meta, but build primarily for the game that's happening around you. Do you need to deal more damage with spells? Build for that. Do you need to tank more magic damage? Report your offlaner for not building Pipe of Insight. Anyways, what would be the ultimate culmination of how item and skill builds can vary a hero? Why, I would argue, it's also Dragon Knight. Behold, my son, Dragonless Knight, where you don't level your ultimate ever, and build only tank items. It's not good, even in the slightest. You're basically playing as a meatball with no utility or damage, so people can just walk past you. It's great. I love Dota. Anyways, what's next up on the docket? Oh, right, yeah, wacky builds. We talked about Dragonless Knight, but wacky builds are my forte in this game. I love them. So, what is a wacky build? A wacky build is when your build doesn't fit with any preconceived meta notions. For example, Io, a support who has 3/4 of his abilities dedicated entirely to buffing his allies. How do you make that anything but a support? Well, you put him in the mid lane, you build stat items and eventually Aghanim Scepter, and then you gank the map with the stupid damage of your one non-supporting ability. Also, those buffs, you can also apply to your allies. They also apply to you. I have over 300 games on IO, and around half of those games play him in a core role. I'm a sinner. Wacky builds keep me playing because they allow me to experiment. Now, not every wacky build will work. For example, Troll Warlord Pause 5. Not exactly an ideal support, but Troll Warlord Pause 4 kicks ass. Trust me, it actually, works. Some of my favorite meme builds, which I can make entire videos on if you'd like, comment below, are Lich mid, Terrorblade offlane, the aforementioned IO mid, and Arc Warden soft support, also known as Forwardin. These builds are very silly, and I love them with all of my heart. They're all very fun and very stupid, and people don't trust me when I pick them in my video games, but they all have positive or nearly positive win rates, so eat my ass, they're viable. This style of constantly looking for new ways to not play the game the way it was meant to be played is what keeps me coming back to Dota 2. I honestly rarely find playing heroes the way they were meant to be played as that interesting or fun. I need that extra serotonin from knowing that I was the one to come up with the build. I like to call this "I am so different, please pay attention to me" syndrome. Medically diagnosed, of course. If that last line made you think the whole wacky build thing was a shitpost, I assure you it is not. These are my real, actual Dota buff stats. But, as we near the end of this video, allow me to wrap it up with an explanation on what your first few Dota games are going to go like after you start it up for the first time, to give you a bit of a teaser for the gameplay should you choose to languish in the same hellish mud pit as I. So, you're a scrub who has just installed Dota 2. The first thing you should do is play the tutorials. Cool, got it? Nope? Alright, so now you're going to enter into new player mode, a game mode with significantly lowered roster of heroes where 5 people team up against easy bots to learn the ropes. Your first thoughts upon entering a game will likely be, huh? What the fuck's going on? What? Huh? Which is normal. Let's just start out simple by choosing a hero for you. So, there are 2 types of new players. The first type has the mindset of, I know I am bad, and will therefore pick the role where my deaths matter less compared to other roles. This player will likely pick Shadow Shaman or some other disabler, and play support. The second player has the famed fuck it we ball mindset. This player will pick Dragon Knight, and play him wherever the fuck they feel like. We will be catering towards the latter player. We are not pussies here. The only pussies we tolerate are the ones we get to fuck, and God knows Dota players aren't fucking any pussies anytime soon. So, you just picked Dragon Knight. Now to choose your role. To do so, look at the minimap when the clock strikes 15 seconds. Find the lane with only one other person in it, unless that lane is mid, and go there. Hit the creeps in that lane, or optionally, don't hit the creeps in that lane if the other guy's hitting the creeps in that lane, and buy the items that the game tells you to buy. Clicking Breathe Fire on the enemies when they get too close, or just when you kind of feel like it. Then, follow the game plan I detailed earlier. Level Dragon Form, bully the map, push towers, win game. Sound like a plan? Good. Now go do it, bitch. So, once you've played a few new player games and gotten the hang of how to play the basic gameplay loop, you're ready for unranked. No, not there. You're not ready for that. No, I don't mean it as an insult. You physically cannot play ranked until you play a lot more Dota. Like, a lot more Dota. Like, 100 hours in-game of Dota. Yeah. Each game averages around 40 minutes. You gotta play around 150 games of Dota 2 in order to unlock the number going up. This is how you keep new players, Valve. Great work. Anyways, no, just ignore that game mode. You're gonna want to click on Unranked. Maybe once you're good enough, you can join the real Giga Chads like me in Ability Draft. Make sure you don't leave any games of Dota 2 against other players, by the way. Dota 2 punishes leavers with the low priority queue, which certainly doesn't sound too bad until you realize that you have to win a game, oftentimes multiple games, of the single draft game mode. meaning you are given
4
out of the very long list of available heroes in Dota 2 to choose from. That means that you, a new player, could be given a choice between Invoker, a hero that has over 10 unique spells to cast and keep track of, Arc Warden, the hero that requires micro movement like this, and Chen, the hero that requires full knowledge of every available creep in the jungle and their individual spells to play properly. Yeah, now pick one and win. Don't leave too many Dota games, kids. You don't want to go down there. Anyways, that's all the advice I have for starting Dota 2 without getting super into specifics. Again, if you want more Dota content from me, just tell me. I'm not exactly expecting traction for this video, but hey, who knows? Maybe the Dota fans will come out of the woodwork and blow this video up out of nowhere. God, I hope so. Anyway, that's all from me. I'll see you a lot in the next one. Bye-bye.